Zaraketh had been told all her life that humans were predators, that they hunted without remorse, consumed anything they could overpower, and smiled with teeth only when preparing to devour. She hadn't believed all of it, not really, but still, she had been careful. And then her scout ship crashed. A crackling fire of sparks had rained down from the controls as her navigation system failed. A massive gray vessel loomed ahead in the dark of space, pulling her in with a slow but undeniable force. No weapons had fired. No warning had been given. Yet she was being captured. When her ship slammed into the docking cradle, pain flared through her arm. Purple blood oozed from a gash at her shoulder. Fear turned her scales dark, nearly black. She remembered her grandmother's warnings. If the humans catch you, you won't leave alive. She hid behind the pilot's seat, curling her body into the smallest space possible. Her long tail wrapped tightly around her waist. When the door hissed open, she didn't breathe. Heavy boots stepped inside. A voice deep, soft spoke something in human language, unintelligible to her ears, but not harsh, still. She assumed it was a hunting tone. Then a second voice, lighter, another human. They were speaking to each other. She caught the word injured, one of the few terms she had learned. They knew she was hurt. That meant they would come for her. "Hey there," the first voice said. "I know you're in there. I'm not going to hurt you." Zaraketh trembled. Did they speak kindly to make prey relax? The human crouched and peered into her hiding space. His skin was pale, his eyes a dull brown, his expression lined with something like concern. Concern? No, surely it was calculation. "You're scared and hurt," he said. "Lisa, get the medical kit." A second human knelt beside him, with red hair and green eyes. Her gaze softened when it met Zaraketh's. "She's just a girl," the red-haired one whispered. Zaraketh did not understand their words, but the tone confused her. They sounded gentle. The male reached out. She curled tighter into a ball, scales hardening to armor. He didn't grab. Instead, his hand hovered, then settled lightly on her shoulder. "We want to help," he murmured. Zaraketh stayed frozen, but when the human lifted her, it was with incredible care, as though she were glass. They carried her through the wide halls of the ship. No chains, no weapons, just soft lights, watchful eyes, and silence. She was placed on a bed in a clean room. The red-haired human pressed buttons on a glowing device. It hummed and pulsed with soft blue light. When it touched her wound, the pain faded. "We need a translator," the male said. He tapped the wall. A small silver orb descended from the ceiling. It clicked, spun, then spoke in her language. "Hello. Can you understand me?" Zaraketh's eyes widened. She nodded slowly. "My name is Jake," the male said, his voice now matching the translated words. "This is Lisa. We want to help you." "What is your name, Zaraketh?" she whispered. Jake repeated it, awkwardly but kindly. "Zaraketh, your arm is broken. Lisa is a healer. May she help you?" "Why?" she asked. "Why would you help me?" Lisa smiled. "Because you're hurt, and helping is what we do." Zaraketh stared. None of this made sense. "Are you going to eat me?" Jake blinked. "What? No, absolutely not. But humans eat everything." Lisa laughed softly. "Not people, not thinking beings. We grow food, fruits, plants. We even have a garden." Zaraketh narrowed her eyes. "A trick or truth?" "I eat fruit," she said, "not meat." "Perfect," Jake replied. "I'll bring you something from the garden." Moments later, he returned with a plate filled with colorful foods. Zaraketh sniffed them cautiously. Grape, carrot, apple. She recognized the smells from the market gardens of Velixia. She tasted one. Sweet. Safe. She ate in small, slow bites. Lisa watched with quiet relief. "Thank you," Zaraketh said at last. Jake grinned. "You're welcome." Over the next 2 days, Zaraketh's arm healed. Her scales lightened. Her fear dulled but never vanished. She was given a room with a round window. Through it, she watched stars drift like flecks of frozen fire. On the third morning, Pete appeared. He was young and jittery, with hair that stood in every direction, and a constant smudge of grease on his shirt. "Hi," he chirped. "I brought something." Zaraketh blinked. "Something." Pete held up a box. "It's a converter. Changes energy types." "Wanna see?" She nodded slowly. He placed it on her desk. When it activated, soft lights shimmered across its panels. Zaraketh watched, fascinated. Your machines are very precise, she said. Pete scratched his head. Well, we try. What kind of tech do your people use? She hesitated, then reached into her pouch and took out a seed, pale and ridged. This is an Yule seed, she said. It grows only if planted by someone who means no harm. Pete's eyebrows rose. Can we plant it? Zaraketh gave a small nod. In the hydroponics bay, she pressed it into soil, watered it, then waited. An hour later, it bloomed. The petals were silver and thread-like, glowing faintly. Pete stared, awestruck. You grew this for me? Zaraketh tilted her head. You trusted me first. That night, she sat beside her window again. On her table, the Yule pulsed with soft light. Humans, she thought, were not what she had been told. Jake had offered kindness. Lisa had offered healing. Pete had offered curiosity. And in return, she had offered a flower. Trust, after all, was not a weapon. It was a seed. And it was growing. Snow crackled under Tenro's boots as he stumbled through the canyon. The wind here didn't howl, it whistled. The sound reverberated through the frozen cliffs like distant voices. Or maybe just memories. He hadn't heard another soul in nearly 7 days. His transmitter had died 3 nights ago. Galaxfer had been a mapping mission. Simple and low priority. The planet was nearly frozen, its glaciers crawling across jagged terrain like the slow, grinding hand of time. When the orbital team detected a strange buried structure in the canyon, he volunteered to investigate it. Language was his world. Forgotten alphabets, extinct symbols, ancient meanings behind long-dead syntax. He didn't expect a cave-in, or for the others to leave orbit without him. But here he was alone, starving. And he squinted. Was that movement? Tenro dropped low behind a slab of ice. It looked like wings. Something was flitting between the frozen arches of the canyon wall, something light and tall, its body almost flowing. A predator? He reached for his emergency flare gun. It had 2 shots left, enough to scare something off. Maybe. Then the figure stopped moving. It turned, and it sang. Solia's feathers shimmered with frost as she perched beneath an overhang of blue ice. Her ear plumes quivered. She'd heard the human moving before she'd seen him. Heavy boots, broken breathing, fearful rhythm. She had known humans were present on this planet, but not this deep in the glacier canyons. They were usually loud and slow, but this one had gone strangely quiet after she started singing. Maybe he knew the meaning of her song. Maybe not. Solia adjusted the map scroll slung across her shoulder. Her kind called Elyar had learned to navigate by echo and tonal bounce. Each note she sang reflected a different part of the terrain. With the right tones, she could hear the world like a sculptor sees clay. The canyon's walls, the buried ridges, the hollow chambers below, all mapped through sound. But now the human crouched there, half hiding, half staring. His mouth was slightly open, and his eyes didn't say predator. They said poet. She took a chance. Solia lifted one wing arm slowly and opened a small pouch from it. She pulled a folded sheet of fibrous leaf paper. On it were drawn glyphs in both Ilyari and human languages, her attempts to bridge the two. She let it drift on the wind between them. It landed near his boots. Tenro didn't move at first. He stared at the paper. He recognized some of the symbols. Not all, but enough. You map this? He said aloud. Solia tilted her head. She didn't respond in speech, only in a soft, rising tone that echoed off the ice like a chime. He picked up the paper. You're not attacking me, he murmured. She blinked once, then opened her wing again slowly and offered something else, a tiny, glowing orb that pulsed with a soft blue light. It looked almost like fruit. She placed it on the ice between them. Tenro hesitated, then stepped forward. He took it. It was warm. The ice caves stretched below the canyon like veins, glistening with pale bioluminescent threads. Tenro followed Solia deeper, further from the cold night wind. Her song guided the way, slow notes that bounced off curves and walls, always changing, always clear. They reached a cavern lit from within, its ceiling glittering with frost that shimmered to her voice. She sat on a low, crystalline ledge and opened a travel pack. From within, She pulled a few roots and two of the same glowing fruits she had offered him. She gestured gently. "Eat." Tenro sniffed it. It smelled faintly of berries and citrus. He took a cautious bite. Sweet, juicy, definitely not poisonous. He smiled. "Thank you." Solia looked pleased. Then she hummed again. This time the tone rose and shifted. She pointed to herself, then repeated. The tone. It was her name. Tenro blinked. "Solia." He guessed. She trilled softly, affirming it. He pointed at himself. "Tenro." Her second hum was clumsy. Her mouth wasn't made for human sounds, but she tried. He laughed softly. "Close enough." Then she did something unexpected. Solia reached into her map scroll and unfurled a new sheet. It was blank. She dipped a claw tip into a small pot of blue ink, then carefully etched a new symbol. To curved strokes, side by side, connected by a shared line. She looked at him. Then pointed to herself, to him, then to the glyph, a shared glyph. He realized what it meant. "We're here," he whispered, "together." Solia didn't know his words, but she knew his eyes. They were no longer afraid. By the third day, Tenro could mimic some of her tones, not perfectly, but well enough to echo greetings or agreement. In return, Solia traced the curves of his letters onto the frost walls of the cave. A, E, T, O, each sound like a shape to her. She'd press her wingtip to his palm, copying the motion of his fingers as he wrote. They'd found a place between languages. One afternoon, he asked her with gestures and drawings why she lived alone. She hesitated. Then traced a mountain with crumbled lines beside it. He understood. Collapsed home. Or lost. She drew another figure, then an X over it. Dead. No. Banished. His breath caught. "You're exiled." She met his eyes and said nothing, but her wing curled tighter around her scroll. It was on the fifth night that Tenro, curled beside a low-burning thermal crystal, whispered, "I don't want to leave." Solia was watching the glowing glyphs she'd carved into the far wall. She turned at his voice. He pointed to himself, then gestured in a circle around the cavern. Then he took her hand, slowly, gently. No fear. Her feathers rose along her shoulders, an Ilyari sign of surprise. Her heart beat fast. Her kind didn't touch often, but this human's hand was warm, steady, not a demand, a request. Her fingers closed around his. She sang a tone, quiet, low. It echoed off the cavern wall and came back soft and golden. He didn't know what it meant, but he believed it was yes. The next morning, Solia took him to a ledge where the canyon opened wide. The twin moons of Galax hung above the horizon, pale and immense. Frost covered everything, but the cold didn't matter. She reached into her satchel and withdrew something. A folded blossom, dark as midnight, edges rimmed with frost. She held it out to him. Tenro blinked. "For me," she nodded. It opened as he touched it. Petals like feathers, soft light within. A strange scent, floral and warm. It pulsed with faint heat. A flower that bloomed when offered freely. Not for trade, not for peace, for affection. He touched her cheek gently. "You thought I was a predator," he whispered. She didn't need the words. She stepped closer and pressed her forehead to his. In her people's language, that meant, "We share warmth." Neva had long since stopped trying to explain the quiet to people. Silence wasn't empty to her. It was full, a canvas of vibration, touch, and motion. She felt language in footsteps, moods in how someone breathed, intention in the curve of an eyebrow. Sound was just a tool others relied on. She lived in the deeper layer, which made her stranded here on an abandoned mining moon orbiting Ravanine all the more surreal. The emergency shuttle had crash-landed days ago. Her team was gone. The mining installation was a dead ruin. No communications ray, no emergency beacon, nothing but caves, flame-cracked stone, and bubbling thermal vents. Her only companions were her hands, the heat, and the way the ground pulsed beneath her like it was alive. She didn't expect to find anyone else, not here, and certainly not him. She saw the glow first, not firelight, not chemical flare. It was alive. Orange-gold tendrils flickered between stone columns at the base of a vent. The figure moved slowly, cautiously, as though trying not to stir the air too much. His body radiated faint heat, His skin was darker than the volcanic rock and marked with glowing streaks that pulsed in rhythm. With the molten flow below. Car is. He saw her, froze. Neva didn't run, but she didn't approach either. He raised one hand, the gesture uncertain. He didn't speak. She guessed he didn't need to. His entire presence was language burning softly into the cave. She responded the only way she could, slowly, carefully. She tapped her hand to her heart, then extended it outward. "I'm not here to harm you." He tilted his head, the light along his collarbone dimming slightly. She pointed to herself, then formed a quick gesture, a sign name, Neva. His eyes narrowed not in threat, but curiosity. Then he touched his own palm to the lava-warm stone. With his clawed finger, he etched a word. Car is. The rock sizzled beneath his touch. The name glowed faintly in the dark. Neva had seen illustrations of the cinder-born before, creatures who lived in active lava worlds, whose blood was thick with heat-carrying cells, whose presence could melt metal if they lost control of their emotions. People feared them, called them monsters, weapons. But this one offered her a mineral flask. It was heavy and covered in etched glyphs. She raised an eyebrow. He unscrewed the lid. A small jet of steam hissed out. She took it. The liquid inside was warm, dense, and somehow sweet when she drank, like molten sugar and minerals. He waited until she was done, then watched her closely. She tapped a thank you into her palm and gestured it to him. He didn't understand. She tried again, this time pressing both hands together, bowing her head, and letting her fingertips linger against her chest. He mimicked the movement clumsily, unsure. But he tried. She smiled. Karis's eyes glowed a bit brighter. Over the next 2 days, they began to find a rhythm. He couldn't speak much. His voice, he'd shown her, could crack stone if not controlled. He communicated in touch, in glowing symbols drawn into rock, in the careful pacing of breath. She showed him her signs. He watched her hands with the reverence of someone who had never seen language given such shape. She taught him fingerspelling for basic concepts. He taught her to sense different heat signatures in the stone, to read the ground like a map. And then there were the fire blooms. On the third evening, he brought one to her. It looked like a blossom carved from lava, but it was alive, its petals, soft, giving off a pulsing warmth that felt like a heartbeat. It shimmered in her palm, gently vibrating with energy. She looked up at him. He pointed to her. Then to his own chest, then gently pressed his forehead to the flower. She understood. This was not a gift. It was a declaration. They sat together near a lava channel the next day. Neva sketched something in the soot with a shard of graphite from her suit. It was a human symbol. 2 curved lines connected at the base, a gesture of protection, of shelter. She pointed to herself, then to the symbol. Karis stared at it for a long time. Then he turned and placed both palms on the stone. His hands glowed white hot, then faded. On the obsidian surface between them, a new glyph appeared, curved, simple, balanced. She looked at him. He signed with slow, careful hands, awkward, but trying. "Yours, safe." Alwaish closed her eyes briefly, then reached for him. And placed her forehead gently against his arm. The heat was intense but not harmful. She had never felt so seen. On the 6th night, disaster struck. A seismic quake roared through the moon's crust. The mining tunnels collapsed one after another in a chain of echoes. The lava channel where they had rested split wide open. Neva was thrown backward against the cave wall, her helmet cracking. She coughed, staggered. Karis emerged from the glow, half covered in black and dust, his eyes blazing bright. He ran to her, touched her faceplate, saw the fracture. She shook her head, pointed to the exit. He lifted her into his arms. The path was blocked. So he made a new one. With a roar low and focused, he summoned his inner fire, using it like a cutting blade to melt through the rock. It took all of his control not to ignite the entire chamber. The escape tunnel steamed as he carved it, and when they finally emerged into a windswept canyon, Neva collapsed into the volcanic ash and wept. Not because she was afraid, but because he'd saved her without hesitation, and because she wasn't alone anymore. She woke hours later to find him curled beside her, his glow low, his body cooler than before. Resting, she pressed her fingers gently to his hand, waited until he stirred, then traced something new onto the rock. Her name, his name, and a shared symbol, a spiral, intertwined lines, no beginning or end. He reached out and added a flame at the center, then leaned close, not touching her skin. He dared not but close enough for the warmth to wash over her like breath. She leaned into it and signed slowly, "I feel you." Always responded not in signs, but in the glow of his heartstone embedded in his chest. It pulsed once, twice, then synchronized with the rhythm of her fingers as she signed, "Home." Saray had never cared for cities. They were too loud, too sharp, and too full of words that meant nothing. That was why she took a terraforming assignment in Sector 19R on a quiet, far-flung moon where the atmosphere was still being balanced, and no one came unless they were paid to be there. Her job was simple: tend the seeded groves, encourage root matrices to take, help the genetically tweaked ferns learn to coil around the oxygen vents. She spoke to the plants in soft hums and water rhythms. Most humans didn't like this kind of work. Saray did. But something strange had happened in the last cycle. The trees had started humming back. The moon had no name, just a designation, epsilonver_3 red. Its forests weren't natural. They'd been grown in glassy soil over buried vents. The trees were pale and hollow, their trunks semi-translucent, their leaves soft and sharp at the same time. And lately, they sang when the wind passed through them like tuned flutes. Saray didn't mind. She was humming along with them one misty morning when she noticed movement. Not mechanical, not the usual supply drone. Something winged. Fast. She froze. It paused in a clearing of golden grass. Head tilted, a creature with glass thread wings, tall and narrow, its skin reflecting the sunlight like prism shards. Its arms were long and delicate. Its face was like a carved shell, and its eyes, 8 of them, glowing pale violet, blinked slowly as it looked at her. Saray didn't move, didn't breathe. The being tilted its head the other way. Then it knelt. It pressed one of its many fingers into the soil and gently lifted a root-bound blossom from the ground. The flower was made of translucent petals and glass dust. The creature held it out, a gift. Melis had watched the human for 12 days. She was soft, not in body though she looked so fragile, but in rhythm, in breath. She sang with the plants. She did not break them. She did not cut too quickly. She used water as if it were a sacred element. So unlike the others. So unlike the invaders who had come before. Melis's kind had once breathed air made from the silicate winds of this world. Their lungs were slow converters. Their voices were pulses of vibration through root glass and canopy veins. When the terraforming began, most of her kind had gone silent or fled into the deep fissures. She had stayed, out of curiosity, or maybe hope. Now, the human stood perfectly still, her wide eyes watching the gift. Melis waited. Would she run? Would she scream? Instead, the human stepped forward. Carefully, slowly, she cupped her hands around the flower, not taking it, just holding it for a moment, feeling the petals. Then she lifted her head, met Melis's gaze, and smiled. They didn't speak at first. Not with words, but with gestures, hands open, always visible. Saray crouched and sketched spirals in the loam. Melis responded by curling her wings to mimic the shape. They began leaving gifts for each other. Saray would weave small nests of moss and thread between roots. Melis would hang folded leaves shaped like wings in the branches above her hut. They met more often now under the taller trees that sang the clearest. And when Melis learned how to draw on the dust with the sharp tip of her lower arm, she started mimicking Saray's letters, S-O-R-E-I. Saray would laugh quietly, then guide her hand. They built a shared alphabet in a flat patch of soil beside the main irrigation channel. No one else knew. No one else needed to. One day, a storm rolled in from the western canyon. It wasn't a normal storm. The terraforming machines had been imbalanced, too much ionic conversion in the atmosphere. The lightning was green. The wind was sharp enough to shred. So our EI barely had time to retreat into the emergency shelter. She hadn't seen Melis all day. She paced in the dark. Worried. Terrified. And then just before the final burst of wind collapsed, one of the upper glass trees something knocked at the shelter door. Not a hand. A rhythm. 3 taps. Then 1. Then 3. It was the rhythm of the tree song. Saray flung the door open. Melis was their wings torn. Chest cracked, but glowing faintly from her inner core. Saray pulled her in without thinking. She wasn't hot. She wasn't cold. She was vibrating softly, like sorrow and lightning trapped together. Saray wrapped her in a heat cloak and pressed her forehead to Melis's chest. And in the quiet afterward, the two of them lay curled together beside the shelter's filtration lamp, breathing the same air, letting their rhythms align. Melis healed slowly. Her kind didn't regenerate like humans, but they changed, adapted. Saray would mix silicate dust into her water to help. She would crush fire blossom petals and rub the salve into the cracks in Melis's shell. Each touch was careful, reverent. Melis would hum in return vibrations, low and complex, a kind of gratitude song. They spent more time in the glass grove, where the trees grew tall enough to block the sky, where the wind couldn't steal their sounds. Melis began to touch her more, just light brushes of the hand or wing. And one day, Saray looked up from her gardening, and Melis was kneeling in the center of the grove, surrounded by a circle of blossoms. She had arranged them into a spiral. With Saray's name written in their color dot at the center was something new, a tiny tree, still growing, but its trunk was glass, and its leaves shimmered with violet, a fusion of species. Of breath, of care. Saray knelt beside her, touched her hand to Melis's, and traced the first human word they'd ever carved together into the bark of that new tree. Belonging. Rian wasn't supposed to be there. The station above Tantifor had shut down 3 years ago. The last crew pulling out after the mineral veins ran dry and the orbiting rings collapsed. It was debris, now shattered habitats, cracked panels, old ship bones spiraling above a red gas giant. But scavengers went where the stars forgot. His ship, the Glimmer Dog, had found no clean metal in 3 days, just fragments and ghosts. He didn't mind. He liked the silence. Then something shimmered on his screen. Not a signal, not a ship. A trail, like someone had carved a line of light across the black. He followed it. Of course he did. Rian was a quiet man, said little, trusted less. But something in that flickering path called to him. The trail led to an object drifting slow and steady, an old observation bubble, half-cracked and rotating in lazy circles. The light was inside. He docked manually, crawled through a pressurized breach. The air was thin but breathable. He floated down into the center of the sphere and found her. She wasn't what he expected. The creature floated above a star map, her lower limbs shaped like folded silver arms, her head a translucent veil of color. Her body seemed made of glass and sky, softly pulsing with inner light. She didn't notice him at first. She was singing, not sound, but light. Tiny bursts of glow pulsed from the tips of her fingers, patterns that traced across the maps, surface and bursts of constellations, stars old and young. He recognized the Centauri spiral, the collapsed Gemini fork, even Earth's faded orbit lines. She paused when she noticed him, tilted her head. The lights stopped. Rian raised one hand slowly, a wave. Her face shimmered, a subtle hue of violet. She pulsed once, then formed a light between her hands, a shape, a question. He didn't know what she was asking, but he answered anyway. He pulled off his glove and pressed his bare palm to the glass floor of the observation bubble. His name, slowly, with fingertip pressure. He traced the letters, Rian. She watched Dot, and then, between her fingers, a new constellation bloomed, 5 stars in an arc. The final one blinked once. Rian understood. That was her name. Vlae. She couldn't speak. Not like he could. But he learned her rhythm, the way her pulse changed near solar remnants, the stutter of her fingers when she drew future paths, the soft glow she released when she was pleased. She was mapping something, not just stars, time. She showed him carefully how her people didn't view events in sequence. They saw them as spatial formations. A heartache was a bend in a constellation. A kiss was a flare of starlight that never faded. He didn't know how to tell her that he'd never kissed anyone, not really, that he'd never mattered enough to stay in anyone's orbit. But somehow, Vele seemed to already know. They drifted together for days. She let him help, told him, through light and shape, which cables needed untangling, which panels reflected the wrong sequence. She was correcting the old map, trying to right a wrong star path. One evening, he returned from his ship with a tin of dried fruit and a water bulb. Set them beside her. She didn't eat, but she pulsed gently, acknowledging the offering. Then she drew a spiral, 2 dots, one larger, one small. They spun together. Then they didn't. The larger star went dark. He looked up. She held the dark light in her hands like sorrow. He knew what she meant. Lost. Alone. Same. He touched the side of her hand. Just a brush. Her glow didn't dim. It brightened. He slept in a hammock near the star map now. Let her glow lull him. Woke to faint light brushing across his chest. She always kept him within her constellations. Safe. Present. Not forgotten. And one night, when the silence between them felt thick with meaning, she lit the walls of the dome with a new pattern. His face, drawn in stars. It was crooked, uneven. She wasn't good at human features, but he knew it was him. She pulsed in time with the center, a soft glow that radiated outward. He blinked, then reached for her hand. And wrote his name again. RIAN. Then, next to it, yours. There was a final thing he needed to give her. The star map she kept was breaking. The dome's integrity was too damaged. The vacuum would take it in weeks. He showed her, gently, by lighting warning patterns on the deck. She understood, looked around once, then nodded. He didn't know what it meant. Until, the next night, she was gone, but left something in his hammock. A piece of glass, containing a pattern of 5 stars. Her name, and on the edge, one added star. Him. He found her weeks later, orbiting in a new shell, a biosphere ship, grown from stellar coral. He docked without thinking. She was there. Waiting. No map this time. Just space. And a star between them. She placed it in his hand. It glowed softly. He placed his name beside hers in its light. And for the first time in his life, Rian felt what gravity could never explain. That not pull, not force, belonging.